What's up, guys? Today I wanted to talk about what I think are a couple of really simple features that could make NASCAR Heat 5 worth buying if they were able to do this, which I do think they can do it. I think these are very simple add-ons. I could be wrong, but I'm gonna just, it's not a wish list video. I've done those. But I wanted to talk about what could be realistically, you know, done to NASCAR Heat 5. Uh, I've told you guys already. I'm not expecting a lot. I don't think they've had the time or the resources to really make the kind of improvements we've seen every year. So I just don't want people to get their hopes up. I'm not expecting a lot. They've already confirmed that, they said the biggest improvement that you're going to notice is the stats. So I've been talking about stats for many years. uh, I've been doing this for like 8 years, and that's one of the things I've been screaming about for as long as I can remember. Now I'm happy that they're addressing the stats, but in all honesty, that's not a real feature. I don't consider that something to brag about or something that, is going to make the game elevate it to a whole new level. It's my thing has always been that the fact that it wasn't in the game or it wasn't addressed properly was a problem, right? It's not so much that it's a feature, it's something to brag about, but the fact that it's not in there to me was incredible. I'm just going to use a quick example, right? Just to simplify it. Imagine a car manufacturer building cars for 8 years, right? Well, let's say six, because they have kind of added, they did add stats the past couple of years. So it's not really as bad of an issue. But let's say a car manufacturer is building cars, and for 6 straight years, every year they release the new model of the car. There's no radio. And finally, after 6 years, they add a radio. But the radio only plays AM stations. There's no MP3. You can't stream. You can't, no Bluetooth. But, hey, you can listen to AM radio. That is kind of the way I see this, right? First, they had no radio in the car. They finally addressed it. There's a radio, but it's so limited, and it's just laughable, right? Who would buy a car that has no radio? It doesn't really matter how good the car is. It just shows a lack of attention to detail for something that is it's a no-brainer, right? It maybe going back 50 years ago, yeah, it was a big deal to get a radio in a car. It was not standard, it was an option. And even later on, it was an option to have, like, let's say, an 8-track player. That was not standard in cars back then. But it's 2020, and this issue to me, the it's amazing to me, right? So I'm happy they're addressing it, and it looks like they're going to go all out, and you're going to get proper stats, right? So I'm happy about that, but it's not a feature. And I hope that didn't go over your heads. To me, that's a comparison. You're making cars with no radio, and to me, that's boneheaded. And now you're finally putting a radio in the car and you're bragging about it, or you're touting it as a feature. It's not a feature, man. I'm glad you're finally putting a radio in the car, and it has Bluetooth and everything that it should have. But finally, it took you what, 8 years? And I'm not just talking about 704. I'm going back to Eutechnics. This problem started long ago, and it's the main reason why I started doing videos. I was so uh, flabbergasted that a developer would develop a game, a sports title with no stats. So yeah, we've had stats the past couple of years, but even now it's not done. It's not doesn't go that far, and it's kind of hidden. It should be part of the career mode. It should pop up time to time. For example, if you pass 50 wins, the game should tell you. It should notify. It should be stats should be an active part of the game. When you play NBA 2K, if you score 80 points in a game, the game lets you know the presentation. Everything is it's just all tied together. That's the way you do it. We're not there yet, and I'm sure we're not going to see stuff like that now. But they did say you're going to get, the stats are going to be done right, full, deep, comprehensive. Fine, right? But moving on to what the subject is, which is there are like a couple of things that they can do, right? We know that with all the problems going on right now and all the problems just 704 was having, and then they're in the middle of hiring people, and we don't know that they're in the it's like a real hectic time for the company, and they're developing the game themselves, which is why all these things put together is why I'm letting you guys know, do not expect the type of uh, move up that we've seen with NASCAR Heat 3 and NASCAR Heat 4. This is going to feel a lot, I think, like NASCAR Heat 4 with some small little, polish here and there. But these are a couple of things that I think would go a long way. Now, one thing that they have confirmed, and I still see people, whether it's in a comment section or in the Discord server, which I really have stopped even looking at. It's the most useless thing ever. They should have gone with a simple forum layout. I don't like this Discord server at all. I think 90% of everything in that server is pro league online racing stuff. So there's no real big presence by 704 in the community, really giving us updates or details of what they might be working on or what's going on. It's a useless tool to me. And I've popped in from time to time, and there's nothing useful. It's actually no better than, some other site like Reddit or Facebook or Twitter. It's like, what's the fucking difference? I'm really disappointed with it, and I don't get any. For me, it's useless. Didn't mean to get off track, but I always do this, so bear with me. So, a couple of simple, very realistic things they can do that would make NASCAR Heat 5 worth buying. Doesn't mean I say that it's going to elevate this thing, like I said, but at least give you enough to say, you know what, this is worth it. I want to support this company, which is also why I'm kind of warning people, don't expect a lot from NASCAR Heat 5. They're going to move forward after that. They're going to start developing for next gen. They're going to whole new game engine. They're starting from scratch. And hopefully they do listen to the community and they do follow our wish lists, the things we want to see in these games. They have to address that. So it's too soon to get into that, but that's my hope. So NASCAR Heat 5, here's a few things they can do, right? Just a couple simple things. Customization, there's not going to be a paint booth, okay? But they can still address customization to a point where people say, hey, I know there's no paint booth, but we have options. One of the problems that we have right now that could easily be addressed, templates. Give us more templates. And I think that would have been a directive. Like if I'm in charge of the game development at 704, I tell my guys, whatever you do, you have to come up with 15, at least 15, right? If you could come up with more, great. But at least 15 new templates. Go crazy. Let your, use your imagination. I honestly think that these game developers a lot of times, uh, a lot of times feel, handcuffed. Like there's only so much they can do. They have to follow a specific plan. But if you told these guys, hey, especially with like paint scheme templates and stuff like that, come up with something. That's, I think, where developers might have actually enjoy what they're doing, where they have some freedom. In either case, come up with 15 templates we have to add to the customization. What we have right now is not cutting it. Most of these schemes are very generic. We need at least 15, right? So that's one simple thing that they can easily do. And most of the stuff I'm going to talk about is simple, even to the point where you can add this stuff through a patch. Okay, I think. So 15 more templates. Moving on from there, the number fonts is it's another area that they really dropped the ball. The number fonts are mostly horrendous. They're not sized properly and they're ugly. Now I'm going to show you a couple of examples of things I have talked about, but maybe people just haven't gotten it. So I'm going to go real simple with you guys. Right now what we have is, I'm going to show you an example right here. Now this is one of my favorite paint schemes. Really love this paint scheme. But if you look at the number font, it's a nice number font. I would compare this probably somewhat similar to what we have now. Their main font, the one that's always been there, it's a very generic number, and then they all have the same simple black outline. Okay. Now I've talked about this in the past, but how hard would it be to give us the ability to change that black to any color we want? So let's say we want to make this orange instead of black. If that's all you did to this, right, as an option, it would dramatically change how it looks. It would pop more, right? I'm going to show you examples, but the fact that every number font has a black simple outline that you cannot change makes a difference. Now I know it sounds like I'm making a big, like this is a huge thing. It's not a huge thing. That's the point. The fact that these little details are not addressed, that I would just make it where you can change the outline to any color you want. And also, you already can change the color of the main part of the number, but also be able to change the outline. Imagine right here you got blue, right? You make this number the same blue, but you make the outline yellow. All you would see is the outline of the number. How would that look? That would dramatically change how this car looks. And it's such a simple thing. And that's my point. They don't have to redo the whole, they don't need a full-blown paint booth. It's making little additions, giving us the ability to do little things like that. Just the work on the outline that gives you more options and would dramatically change the look of the car. These are the type of things that bother me because they're simple. They're simple and they're easy to address. There's no reason they couldn't just add these type of options to what they have now. Add more templates, give us more number fonts, better looking number fonts, properly sized. I'm going to show you some more examples, but also being able to change the outline of these numbers to any color you want. By the same token, the wheels. There's only a handful of different wheels we have to choose from. Why can't you just change this to any color you want? That can't be hard to do. Again, these are things that I think could be done with a simple patch. So there's no reason they can't do this with NASCAR Heat 5, right? So I'm going to go into some examples here. I'm going to show you here This is going way back, but this is one of my all-time favorite paint schemes, right? The John Deere paint scheme. Some of you guys probably don't know about it, but some of you guys who are a bit older and have been longtime fans probably remember this. Uh, I love this paint scheme. One of my favorite color is green, by the way. Doesn't really matter what shade. I love almost every shade of green. Green is my favorite color. And I always loved the look of the John Deere products, right? Whether it's a lawnmower or a tractor, whatever it is. I love this paint scheme. But before I get into talking once again about the number, the wheels. This is one thing that actually always bothered me about this, and it was always something that just stuck with me, right? Again, not a big deal, but I like to go rant on about stuff. But why the hell did they paint these wheels green? Anyone who knows anything about John Deere products knows these are your two main colors, right? This green right here and yellow. And all of their products have yellow wheels. All of them. They don't deviate from it. They don't make a special edition with green wheels. It's always body green, wheels yellow. I do like all this, different shading here of two different greens, and I love everything about this paint scheme, except I never understood how they got away with this. Uh, if I was a CEO or someone high up at John Deere, I would have been pissed off. I'd be like, you have to make these wheels yellow. All of our products are green body, yellow wheels. If you want to mess around with other parts of the scheme, great. No problem there. But you got to make those wheels yellow and the body has to mostly represent green. If you want to mix it up, great. Again, this is just one of these little uh, pet peeves I've always had, and especially with this paint scheme, that always bothered me. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. Let me get back to the main part of the video. Back to these number fonts. How cool is that number font? Right? We got these ugly fonts in the game. This is what I'm talking about. How hard would it be to introduce different number fonts properly sized? Here's the other thing I was talking about, different outlines. This one has a shadow, right? So I'm going to show you other fonts with different outlines, different looks. This one has a 3D shadow. Also, the number's yellow, but if you see the outline, there's a white outline to the yellow and then the shadow, the black shadow. That number font looks amazing. Now imagine in the game being able to play around with these colors. That shadow, make it purple, right? I'm just throwing things out there. The fact is that, I mean, having options gives you, it just changes everything. That little white outline, you could change that. You could make that black and then this white, the shadow white. It's just simple things like that, little details that give you options and dramatically change the look of the car. This is why I'm going into some detail with some of the things I've already talked about in the past, but I'm showing you examples. Maybe you've heard me talk about these things before and you just didn't get it, but this is what I'm talking about. What's so hard about adding stuff like that to the game? Give us more fonts and give us options with the outline, with the, if you don't want that 3D shadow, now look, you could do this. This is a Ryan Newman's old car. White letter, different type of outline, no 3D shadow, but the outline is, you could look, it's yellow. And then you put it up against a dark background like this, it pops. Options. Being able to change the yellow outline to green and maybe change this. Imagine changing the white part to black so it matches this black and then only the outline is yellow. So all you see is the outline of the number. Uh, that changes the look of the car. It's just Things like that, simple details. Here's another detail, another different font. Here you got 3D shadow, but a different type of font than the one I showed you with the John Deere car. Completely different font, but still has a shadow, yellow against the orange. And then over here, it's black with a white shadow. Look at how good looking this car is. Because you can play around with different things. You can't do any of that in this game. How hard is it to give us options like that? Being able to color the wheel any color you want, different fonts, different backgrounds, outlines. That's it. You don't need a full-blown paint booth to address issues like this that would make a huge difference in the game. People have been complaining about the lack of customization for years. We know we're not getting a full-blown paint booth right now, but that's okay. These are things that you can do to address the customization, the lack of customization. And it's that attention to detail that is missing. And it's simple stuff like this. How long would it take for these guys to do this, to add this in the game? These are the things that frustrate me. So when you tell me that the biggest addition to the game is going to be stats and it's going to, go a lot into more detail, great. But I've been screaming about that for 8 years. And now you're finally adding it. And like I said, it's the equivalent of telling me, yeah, guess what? This year's model, uh, uh, you know, of the car that you're going to buy, it comes with a radio. And this time the radio does have Bluetooth and you can stream MP3s and all that stuff. Whoop de fucking do. That's my point, man. You can't drop the ball on this. The lack of attention to detail is what really hurts these areas of the game. So just doing this stuff, adding more templates, fonts, giving us options, letting us color the wheels any color we want, those things, just that alone would elevate the customization aspect of the game. So even though we're not getting a paint booth, people wouldn't be that upset about it. They'd be like, well, look, we still have a lot of options here. Speaking of the customization, in career mode, for the love of God, can we allow us to at least save 4 different custom schemes where we have it saved? And in career mode, as an owner, you're not stuck to one ugly paint scheme for the entire season and one sponsor. Why can't you give us the ability to have multiple sponsors, multiple schemes, customized? What's the point of having any customization if in career mode you can't use it? Simple, a simple details, simple things to fix, and it hasn't been fixed. You don't have to reinvent the wheel right now. We know there's a lot happening with the changeover, changes at the company, developing the game, trying to get the game out sooner so you can move on to the next gen. There's a lot going on. And I do sympathize. But there's no excuse for not addressing these issues. If you just, how long would it even take to do this? Most of this stuff to me sounds like patchwork, something that could be addressed in a patch. So let us have multiple schemes that before each race, if you know in the game as an owner, before you go to the next track, you pick which car you're going to run. Usually, it's like if it's a short track, you pick the one that's hopefully at 100%, and you select it, and then you go to the race. How about when you select it, you also have to select which paint scheme you want to run. If you have 4 different paint schemes that you created with different sponsors, right? I understand there's a limit to maybe have 2 or 3 different sponsors, whatever, but before you go to the track, just the same way you select the car, you also select which scheme you want to run so you have options. You can, as you play out your season, you can change it up a little bit. You're not stuck with one generic scheme. Why the hell is it that you're only stuck with one scheme that you have no choice? In the beginning of the season, as an owner, you pick which manufacturer you're going with and which sponsor, and then that's it. It's the same ugly generic scheme, and you're stuck with it for an entire year. And all three schemes, doesn't matter which one you pick, you're stuck with them. Why in the world would you handcuff people from having the option to play with that stuff? This is what needs to be addressed. Let people save up to 4 or 5 different schemes, and then before each race, they can just select which scheme they want to run, and then they can do that. How hard is it to change that, to add that into the game? Doesn't sound hard to me. So, in terms of customization, these are things that can be done, no excuse. And if you did stuff like this, I really wouldn't care if there was a full-blown paint booth. At least not right now. I could wait. That's the problem. You haven't really gone out and added enough templates. The same generic templates that we've had in the past few years are still there. Add templates. Let your developers use their imagination. Surely they can come up with at least 15 templates. Let us color the wheels any color we want. Give us these, look at all these different fonts. Let us change the color of the outline. Let us change, pick a 3D outline, whatever, different fonts. Baby stuff that we shouldn't even be talking about in 2020, but that's what this is about. Simple things that there's no excuse for them not to be able to just put it in the game. And I honestly believe this would appease a lot of people who are upset about no paint booth and are tired of every year not getting certain basic features. Like I've been screaming about stats forever. And yeah, we have stats the past couple of years, but it's not done well. It doesn't go deep enough, and it doesn't really play any role in the game. It's just some tab, it's all hidden in a tab. It's just, you got to start getting into the details. Details matter. So moving on from that, another simple thing that I think is simple, that there's no excuse not to have it, is caution replays. People have been asking this for years. We had caution replays 15 years ago. How is it that it's something that's too technically difficult to just implement? It's a simple thing. And I would love that in online racing as well, which I will talk about in a second. You get on, caution replays. When there's a caution and something happened, everyone in that race can see a caution replay and you know what happened. So there's no dispute who caused what, who's responsible, whatever. I'll leave that alone for now. But why don't we have a caution replay? Simple stuff, quality of life improvements that would help sell NASCAR Heat 5, in spite of the fact that it isn't going to be a big change. What else? The camera view in cockpit mode. Why can't we make it where you can adjust it a little bit? Maybe get this windshield closer, further away, simple, real simple thing that would allow people to customize the way that the view they get from the cockpit mode. A lot of people want to use cockpit mode, don't, because they're not comfortable with the way it's set up, and they're stuck with it. So it's like you can't alter it in any way. How hard would it be to give us the ability to at least shift the camera around, closer to the windshield, maybe further back if you want, whatever. Customize it just enough where, okay, I like the way it looks now, I'm comfortable with it, and I could race in cockpit mode. Simple little thing, it would go a long way in making, the game feel better, right? Now I'm going to talk about online. I know that you guys know by now that I am not a fan of online racing. It's really a frustrating waste of time for the most part. But here's something that would make it very appealing to me, and I think to a lot of people. Again, something very simple. Create a template online where you can run a league. Basically, that template is a page at the top. You name the league, like let's say Disco Inferno Saturday Night League, whatever, right? And you could set the time, the date, every Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So everybody knows this is when the races run. If you want to do it multiple nights, you could do Wednesday night, Saturday night, whatever. You got your schedule. You get point standings fully supported with stats. So everyone in the league, their stat is full stat tracking, right? These guys are they really went in and they said they improved all the stats. Bring it to online. Have that template where you can operate a league fully supported with stats, have standings, everything. You can go to every member of that league. You can see how many laps they led, wins, losses, and everybody, point standings. Be able to run any kind of customized league you want, any length, any amount of races. And all people have to do is once they're signed up, you show up when before the race starts. The race starts, let's say, like I said, Saturday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. 8 o'clock hits, the race starts. If you're not there and you're part of the league, you get a DNF. That's it. You show up to the next race. I think giving people an incentive would probably help, the online racing and getting better, cleaner races. Now people are actually racing for something. All you have now are random 4% wreck fests. There's no incentive to race clean. There's no incentive to try. There, it's win or that's it. Second place is meaningless. Um, it's just a mess. But you give people an incentive, something that's laid out nice in a template. You have custom leagues. You're part of something. You're competing for something. Point standings. Well, now, you don't have to win. Maybe finishing fourth in a league where there's 20 something people is a big deal. Now, instead of making boneheaded moves trying to block somebody from passing you or trying to wreck people because you want to move up a spot, now you're like, you know what? This is points racing. I'm part of a league. You know what? If this guy's faster than me, I let him go by. I don't swerve up and down all over the place trying to block everyone because the race is over. After a couple of laps, you can run leagues, 50% races, whatever. And people actually are now more points racing, right? If you're not good enough to win, shit, a top five may mean something. You know that everything you do is going to matter in your point standings. So I think it would help produce cleaner racing. I'm not saying this is going to solve everything, but if you don't create an environment where people have an incentive to try to race cleaner, maybe racing for points and paying attention to the point standings and feeling like a sense of accomplishment. All you have to do is add a template fully supported by stats. Give people these options where they can run leagues. That is a lot more fun than joining random lobbies of people that are just wrecking each other. That's not fun. It's a joke. That would make it more interesting for me. Also, give us the ability to flag people. I've talked about this before. How hard could it be to implement that? Where you just go, you click on someone's name tag, this guy's an asshole, I'm flagging him. What happens when you flag someone? Well, if you want to join a race or a lobby and there's somebody in there that you've already flagged, you don't even have to join. You already know there's people that you have flagged in there. You don't have to waste your time joining. Also, if you host a race or a lobby and somebody you flagged is trying to join, they can't join. The game automatically blocks them from joining. So you don't have to worry about constantly kicking people. And you kick this guy, and then here he is, 2 races later. You flag people, and they stay flagged. And only unless you decide to unflag them in the future, they'll always be flagged to you. So I think this would also help maybe alleviate some of the horrible trolling. So if somebody is racing and constantly crashing people and everybody's flagging you, guess what? You're going to have a hard time joining any races because everywhere you go, you've been flagged by somebody. Uh, so I'm not saying it's a perfect solution, but man, you got to try something. This is simple stuff. And that's what bothers me. Everything I've talked about so far is real simple stuff. No excuse that you can't add it into the game. It doesn't require major work. At least I don't think. If there's a game developer out there that can tell me, hey man, it's really hard to add all these templates and number fonts and to, maybe give people the ability to run a league with a template and all that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it's that hard, and I really think that this stuff would be enough to get people excited about NASCAR Heat 5. Um, Maybe I'll be surprised that they, at the things they were able to do, but I'm not expecting much, and I really caution people not to get your hopes up. But I want to know what you guys think about the things I just talked about. All of this stuff I have talked about in the past. I realize that, but I wanted to get into more detail about it and keep it where I just talked about things today that are easy for any developer to add to the game. And if you just did this, it would go a long way, in my opinion, to making NASCAR E5 appealing to people that are on the fence. And so I want to know what you guys think. Would this make the game worth buying to you, or are you just like, you know what, that's not enough, I'm not going to support this. uh, I want to support these guys because, like I said, there's a lot going on during this time. As a company, they are going through a lot of changes. That's why my expectations for this next game, I don't have big expectations, and I'm not really upset either, right? If you can add simple stuff like this, I'd be satisfied for now. Obviously, going to the next gen, this is not going to cut it, but uh, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to get into more detail about some of the things I have talked about before. And do you agree that this stuff is pretty simple, and there's no excuse not to do stuff like this? Details matter. None of these things are anything that's going to blow people's minds away, but it's just a way to show that small details matter and it makes a difference. And the lack of having all these little options, it's just inexcusable in 2020. Uh, that would be my focus. If I was in charge at 704, I would really focus on getting this stuff implemented, and of course, keep polishing the other aspects of the game. But I want to know what you guys think, and I look forward to your comments later.